Okay, thank you. So tonight we're beginning our January 6th board reorganization meeting for the 2021 school year. This meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded and stored for access after the meeting. The public can submit public speak using the BOE question form on the website, by using the chat feature in WebEx, or by signing up for the audio live speak also on the website. Adequate written notice of this meeting of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education was sent to the township and village clerks, Star Ledger, News Record, TAP Info, Soma.net, villagegreenNJ.com, and the district website. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this point of the reorganization meeting, we swear in our newly elected Board of Education members. In this case, we have 4 members to swear in. Because of a vacancy a little over a year ago, we had a 4th position run off for the remaining 2 years of the term. So I will begin swearing in 4 board members, and just for the record, I'm going in alphabetical order. So, so the first person I would be swearing in is newly elected board member Susan Bergen. So Susan Bergen, could you quickly do a sound check before we start?
Yes, I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay. And do you have the oath handy so it's easy to repeat back?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. So just repeat after me. I'm going to start off with a small piece, then I'm going to chunk out the rest of the paragraphs just to get through it a little bit easier. Okay.
Okay.
So I state your name.
I, Susan Lewis Bergen,
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God.
do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
I state your name.
I, Susan Lewis Bergen,
do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
do solemnly affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of a member of the Board of Education, am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, you are officially a newly elected board member.
Thank you.
Normally at this point, we would pause for pictures before moving on to the next one. Unfortunately, we are remote at this point.
Yeah.
So later tonight after the meeting, I will finish signing off on the affirmation, and we'll finish the paperwork, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our next newly elected board member would be board member Alyssa Malaspina. Can you please unmute the mic and quickly do a sound check?
I did. Hello, can you hear me, Paul?
Yes. So welcome. I'm just checking that you have the oath available.
I do.
Okay. So yeah,
I do.
you already saw how we did it on the first one. It'll be the same routine. So just repeat after me. I state your
Okay.
name.
I, Alyssa Malaspina,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
I, Alyssa Malaspina, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the government established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
I state your name.
I, Alyssa Malaspina,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
I, Alyssa Malaspina, do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of Board of Education and am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19 colon, instead of 1 or 19:4-1, and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully and impartially and justly perform all of the duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Welcome as a newly elected board member.
Thank you.
Next, newly elected board member, Courtney Winfield. Can you please do a sound check?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And just checking that you have the oath available to make this easy?
I do.
Okay, very good. So just repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Courtney Wingfield,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
I state your name.
I, Courtney Wingfield,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
I solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, and that I am not disqualified for membership on the board due to a conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Normally at this point, I'd say you could take your seat at the horseshoe, but we are remote, but congratulations. And we have one more board member to swear in. It's, for lack of a better term, our incumbent, Kamal Zubieta. Kamal, can you please do a sound check?
Hi, Paul. Hi.
Hello. And checking that you have the oath available?
Yes.
Okay. So just repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kamaljeet Zubieta,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people.
I state your name.
I, Kamaljeet Zubieta,
Do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
do solemnly swear or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education, am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1, and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all duties of that office according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations and welcome to your second year on the Board of Education. And I think everyone should give a round of applause for all four members that we just swore in. Okay, at this point of the meeting, I will now take the roll call of the full board. So just say aye, yes, or here when you hear your name. Board member Susan Bergen.
Here.
Board member Shannon Cuttle.
Here.
Student representative Lily Foreman.
Here.
Board member Thayer Joshua.
Here.
Board member Anne Marie Manning.
Here.
Board member Alyssa Malaspina.
Here.
Board member Erin Siders.
Here.
Board member Courtney Winkfield.
Here.
Board member Johanna Wright.
Present.
Board member Kamal Zubieta.
Here.
You have 9 voting members and 1 student representative present. All right, the next part of the meeting is the election of the board president. Before I start taking nominations, I want to read a brief summary of the procedures. I will ask for nominations. Nominations do not require a second. Nominations are not debatable. After hearing no more nominations, I will do one more call just to make sure. If we don't hear any additional nominations, we close that section. And then I will do a roll call for each person nominated in the order received. The election for the president requires a majority of the number of board members present. We have a full board, so it requires 5 yeses. The first member receiving a majority vote is the elected president. If a majority is not obtained the first time around, the board members with the 2 board members with the highest number of votes will go through a runoff, if you will. I will call the roll for them again, and then we just keep repeating the process until we have a newly elected board president. Any questions before we start? Okay. So I am now taking nominations for board president. I see Erin Sider's hand go up.
Good evening. I would like to nominate board member Zaire Joshua for president.
Okay, first nominee, Zaire Joshua. Any other nominations? Last call for nominations before I close. Hearing no more nominations, I will now take a roll call of the full board to see if we have a newly elected board president. Board member Susan Bergen.
Yes.
Board member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes.
Board member Zaire Joshua.
Yes.
Board member Anne Marie Manning.
Yes.
Board member Alyssa Malaspina.
Yes.
Board member Erin Siders.
Yes.
Board member Courtney Winkfield.
Yes.
Board member Johanna Wright.
Yes.
Board member Kamal Zubieta.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Congratulations, Zaire Joshua. You are the newly elected board president. At this point, the newly elected board president becomes the chair of the meeting, and the process will be repeated to elect the first and second vice president. I pass the chair over to you, President Joshua.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. 1 minute, if I may. Today is supposed to be a mundane meeting on what is anything but a mundane day. It is not lost on me that we just recited the Pledge of Allegiance when earlier today we witnessed the leader of this nation do very little, if anything, to quell what was at best an insurrection. We watched citizens of this nation storm the United States Capitol building to incite fear and violence on behalf of the loser of the presidential election. All of this during a national pandemic that has many of us at home watching the news while our children are learning virtually. I appreciate my colleagues' faith in me to lead this board, and I promise to do so with more humility and grace than what we witnessed earlier today. And with that, I will open up the floor to accept nominations for the first vice president of the South Orange Maplewood School Board, District Board of Education. I see Board Member Zubieta.
Good evening. I would like to nominate for the first vice president of the Board of Education, Shannon Cuttle.
One nomination for Shannon Cuttle. Any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, we will close nominations for the first vice president. Mr. Roth, can you please alphabetical order?
Okay, and just fair warning, I am now doing the roll call in reverse order. I tend to change it so we don't always have the first person. So starting at the end of the alphabet, Board Member Kamal Zubieta, and this is again for the vote for Shannon Cuttle as first Vice President.
Yes.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
Johanna.
I think you're still on.
You're muted, Ms. Wright. We can't hear you.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought I left it on. Y'all know I'm not good at this stuff.
Okay. We have the yes, though. Thank you. Board Member Courtney Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Erin Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Alyssa Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Manning.
Yes.
Board Member Thayer Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes.
Board Member Susan Bergen.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0. Congratulations, newly elected First Vice President Shannon Cuttle.
Okay, I am now taking nominations for second Vice President. Board Member Manny.
I would like to nominate Board Member Erin Siders as the second Vice President of the Board.
Okay, one for Board Member Siders. Any other nominations? Seeing none, I will close nominations for the second Vice President. Mr. Roth, please take the roll.
Okay, we're going in alphabetical order again from the top of the list. And this is the roll call for second Vice President for Erin Siders. Board Member Susan Bergen.
Yes.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes.
Board Member Thayer Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Manning.
Yes.
Board Member Alyssa Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Erin Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Courtney Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
Yes.
Board Member Kamal Zubieta.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0. Congratulations to Erin Siders as the newly elected second Vice President.
Oops, I muted myself. I forgot. I can't do that anymore. Okay, now that we've done the election of officers, I guess I will bring a motion for resolutions, the reorganization resolutions 1 through 10. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none, I will close discussion on resolutions 1 through 10, reorganization resolutions 1 through 10. Ms. Roth, will you please call the roll?
Okay, reverse alphabetical order. Board Member Kamal Zubieta.
Yes.
Board Member Johanna Wright. I think you're on mute again, Board Member Wright.
It went all the way over there in the right-hand corner someplace. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Board Member Courtney Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Erin Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Alyssa Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Manning.
Yes.
Board Member Thayer Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
I'm the one who can't find it. Yes.
Yes. Board Member Susan Bergen.
Yes.
Okay, the reorg resolution carries 9-0.
Board President Joshua, may I interrupt? We did not do a resolution to conduct the meeting virtually.
Okay, so we will do a resolution to conduct the meeting virtually in accordance due to the national state health emergency. All in favor? Just aye, wave, thumbs up. All right, Mr. Roth, I believe that's unanimous. Okay, next is time for hearings of individuals and delegations, known as public speaks. Mr. Bonds, Dr. Taylor, do we have any public speaks this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President, and congratulations to you and to our new officers and to our new board members. I'm going to check our normal spaces here for public speaks. Please give me one moment. Looking in our chat feature, I do not see any public speaks. I'm now shifting to my email. The listing of public speaks responses shared by Mr. Bonds is empty. Now shifting to the list for those who would like to do a live audio public speaks. That list is also empty. I do see one email from someone that says a letter from SOMEA for the board meeting tonight. I'll have to ask our solicitor, is it appropriate for me to read that public speaks? It was not submitted through our regular protocol. I have received it in my email.
It's my understanding, Dr. Taylor, that when you've received emails that were not submitted in accordance with the standard process, you have not read them as part of the public speaks historically. Is that correct?
And yes, we have shifted how public speaks operates in recent board meetings to add the audio component. And we've also made very clear in our advertisements the way to submit public speaks. Again, I have no personal objection to reading it, but I want to make sure that we're following protocols and not setting a precedent that could be followed by others.
Technically, you do not have to read it because it was not submitted in accordance with any of the established methods to be utilized during board meetings. It is your discretion if you would like to read it. It does not create any precedent and should not be considered to create any precedent, that this is the manner in which communications are to be provided for public speaks.
Thank you for that advice. And to further our partnership, I will read the letter that was submitted in the 3-minute time frame, starting my timer next to me here. Dated 1/06/2021, dear board members, we hope that you and your families are safe and well. SOMEA is reaching out to you as the leaders of the South Orange and Maplewood School District to ask that you postpone the return to district buildings until the staff has had an opportunity to be vaccinated. As the number of cases and especially deaths continue to grow exponentially in New Jersey, and a new, more contagious strand of the virus, in parentheses, VCU-202012-01, close parentheses, has arrived, the importance of postponing the return is paramount. The new variant from the UK is assumed to be here in New Jersey already, and reports have come in from New York City confirming cases of the strain. Medical professionals believe this variant is more contagious and symptoms are harder to recover from. Vaccines have been approved and education staff considered as essential workers are in the second group, phase 1B, in parentheses, that will receive them. Vaccinations are on the horizon, and it is only a matter of weeks before our group can begin to qualify. With so much to lose, and being so close to a visible timeline of administering vaccinations, we believe that returning at this time would be a reckless decision as it would put the physical health of students and staff at risk. Prominent experts are publicly urging schools to remain closed for a while longer, as evidence shows that schools facilitate transmission of the virus. We must use what standing we have in the community to make sure that whole school body is represented and protected from learning in an unsafe environment. We want to return to in-person instruction, but only when it's safe or after being vaccinated. We miss our students. We miss our classrooms and schools. We want to be back in our buildings. Our schools right now are just not safe enough, especially given the changing nature of the virus with the introduction of the new variant. Thank you for your continued support of the health and wellness of our staff and students. We hope that you will make the right decision for the health and safety of all. Signed, Somea officers, Rocio Lopez, Cheryl Lincoln, Phil McCormick, and Laurie Pham. That concludes our public speaks.
All right, thank you, Dr. Taylor. I believe next is our ethics training and board governance with our rep, Ms. Charlene Peterson. Sorry, nope, not yet.
Joshua?
Yes.
There's 2 items for action before discussion.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There sure are. So let's raise items 4092 and 4093 for discussion. These are to approve the board committee liaisons and board committee for the 2021 school year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Wright. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will close discussion on action 4092, 4093. Mr. Roth, can you please call the roll?
Okay. Board Member Susan Bergen.
Yes.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes.
Board Member Thayer Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Manning.
Yes.
Board Member Alyssa Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Erin Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Courtney Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Johanna Ray.
Yes.
Board Member Kamal Zubieta.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Roth. And I believe now it is time for ethics training. Yes, Member Wright.
Before we go into that, going back to one of the things we did, we just passed a resolution for our 504 staff to be under the HR director, but we don't have anything, we haven't decided who's, or do we know who's going to be the coordinator for the student 504, because I sort of left out there in limbo, I'm not sure.
I believe that's Dr. Alegria, but I will let Dr. Taylor confirm.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about that too, because it did state in the resolution that she was taking over as student coordinator too.
There was actually a revised resolution that removed the students' parts out. This was just for staff.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that, sorry.
Yes, you are 100% correct, Mr. President. Thank you, Board Member Wright and Board Member Malaspina. Happy New Year. The liaison for Student 504 falls under Dr. Alegria and Special Services. And of course, the local 504 coordinators for each school are the assistant principals.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you.
And now we will bring our NJSBA rep, Ms. Charlene Peterson, in. Can you hear us? Let's do a sound check.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
All right. I believe you're going to be presenting. You'll be sharing a screen. I'm guessing we can, if this is going to run like last year, obviously we're not in person, but I can call on, or if you want to do this as you train, if people have questions, if you can't see the people, I can. If you can, they can give me a shout. I'll let you know that someone has a question along the way. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, no, that would work perfectly.
Fantastic. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So just wanted to say what a pleasure it is to be here with you. I find myself at your reorganization meeting. It seems, for a few years now, and it's a pleasure to be part of this process. I just wanted to congratulate the new board members and your new officers. And, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to walk you through ethics. As much as it is part of the required work that you have to do as a board, it's also a good reminder and a good way to kind of kick the year off. So it really is, appropriate to do this at your reorg meeting. So I'm just going to take you through an overview, and said, please stop me at any time. And you are correct that I can only see a couple faces here. So if someone has any questions or, anything, please, acknowledge them, or, please feel free to jump in. And I will just go through this and want this to be, a conversation. So, please, like I said, please do join in. And as I go through this, recognize that as much as we're going to be talking about ethics and talking about rulings, that the person that the board should always consult to interpret these would be your board attorney. So I'm just here to provide an overview of the School Ethics Act, recognizing that any district specific advice would come from your board attorney. So having said that, and based on the fact that you do have 3 new board members tonight, it really is, like I said, a great time to go through this and kind of start this out from the perspective of looking at it, as a board. I often hear members refer to themselves as volunteers, and would like you to think about yourselves differently and think about yourself as an elected public official. And with that comes responsibilities. You have responsibilities to the people that elected you to hold their respect and confidence, and make sure then that you're avoiding conduct that's in violation of their public trust, but then even taking it a step further, and avoiding conduct that creates a justifiable impression among the public that that trust is being violated. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to go through some examples of, some actual cases from last year, and we'll see how that justifiable impression was put into consideration. So, basically the state has said, if we are going to, hold you accountable, then we need to give you some guidance. So the way that they did that is providing some standards to guide your conduct, but also like a disciplinary mechanism to, and one of the things, we often find is that, sometimes there's a confusion about even the role of New Jersey school boards in this process, and the thought that, New Jersey school boards is the one that has some responsibility with discipline, but it's really part of the School Ethics Act. So there's also some accountability to this. I know we, often get asked, well, what happens if we don't do some of these things that, you're going to tell us about tonight? So as members, we are held accountable to the state, and part of it is through the QSEC, which is, kind of the accountability. And here we see that there are 8 points associated with some of the work we're doing here tonight, of making sure that we're reviewing the code of ethics, of making sure that you file your disclosure statements, and then also making sure that no one's been in violation. So those are things then that will be considered. And as we see tonight, that they're going, the documentation that state's going to look for are the minutes showing that this conversation took place. So when we think about school ethics, a lot of times people just talk about the School Ethics Act itself, but really there's a lot more to it. The oversight arm, the School Ethics Commission, was established, and we'll talk about each one of these in a minute. The training requirements for board members, one of the things we don't really understand is that as board members, you are the most highly trained public officials in the state. The disclosure statements that we have to fill out. We'll both talk about any financial and relatives. We'll talk about conflicts of interest, and then the actual code of ethics itself. So looking at the training piece of it, recognizing in particular for new board members in your first 3 years of board service, the state has passed that you have to take training in your first year, and then in each of the second years after that. So it's every year of your first, your first 3-year term. And then each time you're reelected in that year following reelection, you have to take mandatory training. So that training is given by New Jersey school boards. We make the option to have it usually in person, but we are doing kind of live virtual training. And then you also can take it online. And just, I guess, want to also make sure it's clear for those board members, I will often get questions. I got one today of someone who'd been on the board like almost 20 years and said, do I really have to take it again, after I'm reelected? And the answer is yes, you do. And it is legal updates. So each time it is new and different information. So as we look at the School Ethics Commission, which is that body that oversees the ethics, it's a 9-member board, just like you are. They are appointed by the governor for a 3-year term. That appointment is a maximum of only 5 from any one political party. It's 2 school administrators, 2 school board members, and 5 non-school officials. So they meet monthly, and we'll talk about it's the work that they do then. And it basically is in two areas. It'd be issuing advisory opinions. So only you as a school official can ask for an advisory opinion. And an advisory opinion is when a situation has not taken place yet, and you have a question about whether the School Ethics Commission would consider it to be a violation or not, you can propose the situation to them and they will come back with their findings. Sometimes, if they think it would benefit the rest of us to know that information, then 6 of their 9 members have to vote to make it public so that we then can use that to guide our behavior. I will, go through and show you an example of an advisory opinion, but, just to also provide an easier example from a previous year. There was a situation where a board, one of their newly elected members was an 18-year-old high school student who was still a senior at the time. And the other board members were wondering, what's going to happen? If we have to discipline one of this student's colleagues, what if we, have to talk about one of their teachers? And they had a whole series of, circumstances that came to mind that, might be a conflict because it was a student. And so they asked the School Ethics Commission what their findings would be on this, and basically came back and said, we're not going to treat this student any different than we would any other board members. Whatever would be a conflict for you would also be a conflict for this person. So just kind of wanted to make the point that the conduct had not happened yet, the situation hadn't happened yet, but just asking for advice ahead of time. And then separate from that, they also can rule on complaints, and anyone can file a complaint. So an advisory opinion is only a school official that can ask for one, but a complaint, it can be a member of the public, it can be a staff member, it can be anyone who feels that a complaint took place, and they then would have to provide the necessary evidence to the School Ethics Commission for them to consider. So once a complaint has been received and it has been considered, should the School Ethics Commission decide that a violation did take place, there are 4 different levels of penalties, starting from the least restrictive, which is just a reprimand, which is almost like a verbal hand slap of just acknowledging that, that there was a violation. Censure is a little more formal, and that a resolution is read, not only at the state, but also at your local board meeting. The member can be suspended, and then the member can be removed from office. So the School Ethics Commission makes a recommendation to the commissioner, and then the commissioner is the one that will actually, decide upon the what penalty that will be imposed. And we'll see one of the cases, as we go through some of the cases from last year, we'll see a situation where the School Ethics Commission recommended a removal of the board member. And when the commissioner considered it, the commissioner changed it to a 6-month suspension. So, again, acknowledging that that is the right that the commissioner has to do that. So as we look at kind of some of the work of the School Ethics Commission in this past year, those advisory opinions, 21 people requested an advisory opinion in this past year, and they only made one public. So we'll look at what that one was next. As we think, I talked about that mandatory training and don't really realize that there can be severe consequences for not fulfilling your mandatory training. So here's a situation where they imposed 22 different penalties. 8 members were removed from office. So I have to suspect that this is the first time that they were late in fulfilling their mandatory training requirement. There were 4 members suspended and 10 members received a reprimand. There were 28 ethics violations, cases filed. 24 of them were dismissed and 4 of them were recommended to the commissioner. And we'll look at those a little bit later as well. So here's that one advisory opinion that the School Ethics Commission made public for this year. And it was a situation where the superintendent, his sister-in-law worked in the district. She was a lunch aide and she was hired before he was. So she was already in the district when he was hired. There was an opening in the district for a secretarial position. And in this case, it would have been a promotion for the sister-in-law. So she was considered, she was vetted and interviewed by the building principals. They both said that based on her work record, based on her interview, based on her skills, that she was the best fit for the job. Recognizing that, there might be a conflict because she was his relative, that the superintendent went to the School Ethics Commission and basically said, is it fair to prohibit a qualified and vetted employee to move into this role simply because her brother-in-law is the superintendent? And the School Ethics Commission came back and said, unfortunately, that they, yes, they would consider it to be a violation, that he would, that they would not recommend that the superintendent recommend this person to the board. And basically, again, it comes back to the perception that this would secure an unwanted privilege, advantage, or employee for this person. And here's that justifiable impression, and that it could leave a justifiable impression that public trust was being violated. They also further emphasized that any conversations that would take place in the district level about his sister-in-law, that the superintendent would have to recuse himself from those discussions. So now moving into the Code of Ethics themselves. So one of the things that separates the Code of Ethics is that they are only applied to board members. So some of the other things that I've talked about, we saw also apply to certain administrators, but in looking at the Code of Ethics, it only applies to board members. So as much as we recognize that, we are still individuals and we have First Amendment rights as an individual, we also have to understand that now as elected public officials, that we are now held accountable to the Code of Ethics at all times. So we, have to exercise our individual rights within the Code of Ethics. So recognizing that what we do has to be within this guidance. So I'm just going to kind of, review the highlights of them. And again, like I said, if anyone has any questions, please let me know. So in the first one here, you were asking or being told as a board member, saying that you will uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the state board and court orders pertaining to schools, and make sure that any changes are brought only through legal and ethical procedures. And then underneath each one of these is taken out of code, and these are the standards that the School Ethics Commission said that they will use to consider when a violation is brought before them. So I won't necessarily go through those now, it's just a reference for you. So as we look at this first tenet of the Code of Ethics, it really kind of enforces the fact that as board members, we are kind of like the boots on the ground for the state. And, there are things that come before us, such as the state standards, the state assessments, all kinds of unfunded mandates and other mandates that need to be implemented at the district level. So this is the state's way then of holding us accountable for, for carrying that out. The next one talks about, decisions, and said that you'll make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children, and will seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. And here, the two most important words are all children. I need to emphasize that, as we, as people come before the board, they might have concerns about a particular school, a particular grade, a particular situation. But once you're sitting on this side of the board table, you have to look at things through the lens of how will it impact all of the students in the district, because that's who I'm responsible for. So we need to make sure then that we're using that as, in our decision-making process.
All right, Ms. Peterson, we have a question. Board Member Malaspina.
Sure.
Sorry, I mean, it actually is like the policy before that one, which was number 1. It says, I will uphold and enforce all laws of the school board rules. Now, I understand that. Now, if say we know that a member of the school, a district employee was not enforcing all the rules or regulations of the State Board of Education, what would the role be of the school board member?
Okay, so again, recognizing that the code of ethics only applies to you,
right,
as a board member. So as an employee, they're not held accountable to this. If you have concerns about an employee, you only have, as a board member, you only have one employee that reports to you, and that's the superintendent. Any other members of the staff are, the employees of the superintendent and not employees of the board. You are free to make the superintendent aware of any concerns you might have, but it should not be with expectation that the superintendent needs to get back to you, that the superintendent needs to carry out something. You're just strictly being a messenger in this case, because that staff member is not your employee. That staff member is the superintendent's employee.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next one, we're going to start now kind of getting into kind of identifying what our roles are as board members. So in this case, saying that I will confine my board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal. And then importantly, will only help to form them after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. So as a board, this is helping us recognize that we're a policy making body. But that, like I said, importantly, we need to hear from others. So that's why, as boards, we typically have 2 readings as a policy. The 2 readings of our policy, that the first reading will put the policy out there. And then it is, now has anyone who thinks that they might be impacted by it, has the ability to come back then before the second reading and let you know and say, board, just so you know, this is how this policy is going to impact me, so that you have an understanding of that before the second reading and the adoption of the policy, so that way, you're giving people the opportunity to come back and express how the policy might impact them. So this one is kind of New Jersey School Board's mantra. So when you go to our training, this is something you will continue to hear over and over, say that basically that it's your responsibility not to administer the schools, that is the responsibility of the superintendent, but together with your fellow board members to see that the schools are well run. So here again, our role, recognizing that as that policy making body, we are kind of taking that 50,000 foot view of the district. We're not involved in the day-to-day operation of the district. We hire someone to do that, and that we work together as a team. That is, individuals, we have no more authority than any other member of the public, that our authority comes when you're at a legally constituted meeting like this one, and working together with your team. So as you consider, carrying out your responsibility, I guess to ask yourself, how can I make this a better team? How can I help make a difference? How can I bring my skills and talents to this team and help make them a more effective team who is focused on student achievement?
Charlene, this is Joanna.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
It's been a while. Listen, you're absolutely correct. It's also my understanding that the board is responsible to be sure the district is well run. And we are not looking at micromanaging or anything like that, but that is well run with the correct checks and balances. And
correct.
In saying that, great. And in saying that, as a board member for a number of years, not only here, but on the college level as well, I've served on the personnel committees of both. Now, we are getting ready to hire people. We do understand that while the superintendent makes a recommendation for a hire, it is up to the board to follow through with that. Now, what are the responsibilities of a board who does not get reports and information on hires that you are getting ready to bring forward? What happens when you don't receive the information that you need and that you've asked for in order to make a good decision?
So your responsibility as a board member in any situation is to cast an informed vote. So you will, so you should be asking and should be receiving whatever information you need to cast an informed vote.
And what happens if you don't receive that information? What is your recourse as a board member?
I guess, your recourse would be just to continue to ask for the information. And if you, and try and help put a process in place that will allow the board to have that information. And then you have, obviously, each one of you votes your conscience, and you would decide if you felt like you had the information necessary for you to cast an informed vote.
Would that be an ethical violation if that information was not given to you, and so therefore board members could not make an informed decision without the correct information, but did it anyway?
So when we get to letter H, one talks a little bit about this same thing, and it says that you will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel after recommendation of the chief administrative officer. So we kind of have to walk that line of recognizing that as a board, we do not hire, we do not fire. We only approve or disapprove the recommendations of the chief school administrator. So we need to, so we would be approving that recommendation based on, like I said, on information that that you would consider.
Okay. So where I can find that particular thing written.
We're going to get it's letter H, so we're getting there in a few minutes.
Oh, okay, all right.
And just one last thing on that, Ms. Peterson. My understanding again is that this code of ethics applies just to the board. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the next one says I'll recognize that authority rests with the Board of Education. So again, separating the fact that as an individual, we don't have any rights, we can't speak for the board, we can't act on behalf of the board, that authority rests with the board, so that you will make no personal promises nor take any private action that may compromise the board. So this is holding us to acknowledging that we are part of a team, that we are, not an individual. Sometimes we run as individuals. Sometimes we think we have individual platforms, but recognize that once we get on the board, that we're part of a team, we're one vote. And like I said, our job is to help, make this as strong of a team as possible. Looking at refusing to surrender your independent judgment, making sure that we don't do that to special interest or partisan political groups, or to use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends. And we're going to look at one of the cases that shows this, a violation of this tenet. Here, as again said, this applies just to board members that were, you'll find that you have will be exposed to all kinds of confidential information. The state, even though we are a public body and we do our business in the public, there are going to be certain circumstances or situations, and the state has identified 9 of them, that the board can discuss these matters in executive session. Basically said that it may, harm these individuals. So it would be if you had student matters to discuss, matters about staff, legal rights. So there, like I said, are 9 different areas. So recognize then that that is all confidential information. So this is what's holding you accountable then to that confidentiality, and saying that you will hold confidential all those matters, and that if disclosed would needlessly injure individuals or the schools, and in all other matters provide accurate information. So here, one of the things the School Ethics Commission has said as well is that members of the public will consider that, if you say something, that receives more credibility than other people might, recognizing that you're on the board, you have access to more information. So making sure then that when you are presenting information, that you're providing accurate information. And then in concert with my fellow board members, so here again, recognizing that we're part of a team, we'll interpret to the staff the aspirations of the community for its school.
Charlene, I have a question. This is Joanna again.
Sure.
What about the practice of deliberately withholding information from board members that have the right to know the information that is being selectively hidden and sometimes shared outside of the board with individuals? What are the ethics rules on something that occurs like that?
I can honestly say that would probably be something you would have to ask the attorney. I am not really sure, because like I said, this is strictly for board members. So if is anyone beyond that, I'm not sure what they are accountable to.
No. I'm talking about board. I sit on the board, right?
So if
9 people sitting on the board, so maybe there's some information that all board members should have from board members. It doesn't have anything to do with the outside entities, but the outside entities end up having this information and the board members don't. What do you do with that? It's sort of like a breach of some type. It has to be.
So this would be more kind of, I guess a practice or a way that you as a board, agree that you are going to treat one another, like I said, because you are a team. One of the, ways in working together as a team is that you have to build trust. You have to make sure that you all have the same information, and I don't know if your board has done this, and if it hasn't done it, you might want to consider is that boards are kind of coming up with like a code of governance best practices of saying that, separate from these code of ethics, of kind of developing a code of how you're going to treat one another, how you're going to work together as a team, and make a commitment to your fellow board members of, how you are going to work together. So if you haven't done something like that, this might be one way to, help assign some accountability to areas that you as a group feel is important for you working together as a team.
Ms. Peterson, is it fair? Just looking at this, it seems that it's fair to sum this up that it's like Vegas. What happens in executive session is supposed to stay in executive session?
That's quite true, yes. And, we're finding, I guess, it's also becoming a challenge too now that, boards are working remote, board members are working remotely, of making sure that you are, when you are in executive session, making sure you're in an area that your family can't hear, that, if you're at work, that colleagues can't hear, that, that you are in a space that will maintain the confidentiality of the information that's being discussed.
Thank you.
So here is that one that I read before, that I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. So again, this, and I had mentioned before, so this, acknowledges that your district has a hiring process in place, that it's the responsibility of the superintendent to do the hiring. And so the superintendent would make a recommendation to the board, and that you would vote to appoint that the best person, like I said, after consideration of the superintendent's recommendation. And, the School Ethics Commission even goes so far as to say that if you are not going to support that recommendation, that it can't be for arbitrary and capricious reasons. Okay. And then as we continue to look at supporting school personnel, saying, I will support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. So again, acknowledging our responsibility to our staff, and recognizing that this is not only when you're sitting at the board table, it can be when you're on social media, it can be when you're at the ball field. It's, recognize, like I said, that you are held accountable to this all of the time. And then lastly, that you'll refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on complaints at public meetings only after failure of an administrative solution. So here, kind of use the term of considering the board to be the court of last resort, that, as much as you may be approached by members of the community, by staff members, we recognize that we don't have the authority, and this is telling us that, to find a solution for their problem. What we do know is we understand the chain of command. So we understand who we can help refer them to assist with their situation. And I know I've seen on your website before, I'm not sure if it's still there, that you used to have kind of a step-by-step chain of command based on the situation, help people, if they were wondering who would best help them. And really, as much as sometimes you might think that you might be helping, if we think about the fact that if the board gets involved sooner, then you've almost taken away that court of last resort. Where can the person go? And it's also hard to hold the superintendent accountable if, as the board, you have kind of stirred the pot and been involved in the process, sooner than when the board should. Okay, so that was all of the tenets of the Code of Ethics. I just wanted to then share some of the 2020 decisions or things that came before either the School Ethics Commission or the commissioner, just to kind of, show how these things played out this year. So here's a situation where a board member was a teacher in another district. And as a teacher in that other district, they were also the president of that district's education association. So when we have to fill out those financial disclosure statements, someone filed a charge saying that that board member did not file the income received as the president of that education association. So the School Ethics Commission agreed with that and the penalty of the censure. Here's a situation where there was a teacher who was also a parent.
I'm sorry, Ms. Pearson, can I go right to that case real quick? My understanding is that financial disclosure form is for income greater than $2,000. So if it's under that, would it have been a violation?
I guess, if you're not required to submit it, then it would not be. In this case, it must have been, beyond whatever that requirement was.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's still a perception because of that. Like, does it even matter? That was my thing more. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, from what you're saying, it wouldn't hurt to put something on there, especially in this situation where it's something that obviously it's public knowledge that you're receiving this, this income. So, here's a situation where a teacher in the district was also a parent. There was a situation that occurred. This teacher and disagreed or thought that the superintendent could have handled it differently, and made the board aware of that, that the superintendent spoke with the teacher, and this teacher felt like they were singled out, and were concerned about the way that the superintendent handled that. So they sent an email to the full board. The board discussed it. The board president responded back to the person about what the board discussed. And then this teacher / parent sent an email response back, and this time included all of the board members. One of the board members then wanted to respond, thinking they were just responding to their fellow board members, and hit reply all. So that then brought the teacher/parent into the conversation. And in this board member's response, they talked about some of the things that the board had talked about in executive session. So hereby this person was disclosing some of the confidentiality of issues that were discussed in executive session. Never mind the fact we know we're not supposed to hit reply all, right? Because now then if a majority of the board is involved in a two-way conversation, there also now, has the potential to have this be considered a meeting. So again, as we look at the situation, that is what they found that the person violated was G, which was the confidentiality. They talked about the potential to violate the Open Public Meetings Act. The School Ethics Commission was suggesting to the commissioner a reprimand, and we have not seen the commissioner's decision. So here's a situation where a board member had a blog, and in this blog they chose to post all kinds of things about a tenured staff member. So it was the tenured staff member that filed the ethics charges against this board member, and it was felt that the blog contained deliberate, repeated, and unnecessary attacks on the staff member. Said they attacked their qualifications, they attacked their salary, and just all kinds of, the way they taught, just made all kinds of accusations. So so like I said, so then the staff member filed charges. The School Ethics Commission came back and recommended a penalty of 6 months, and the commissioner agreed and said that, again, these letters respond to or correlate to the letters of the Code of Ethics. So C was, confining your action to policy making. So this case, the School Ethics Commission said these gross misrepresentations in the post were meant to interfere. At the time, the board was involved in negotiations to interfere with negotiations, and felt that this board member framed policies and plans before the board consulted those who were affected by them. They also said E, that this board member acted, took independent action, and said that by verbally attacking a staff member in a public forum, that it diminished the board's integrity and it may intimidate the public to address the board. And then I, where we said we had to support the school personnel in proper performance of their duties, it came back and said that this harmed the staff or the staff members' ability to properly teach and perform their obligations. So this was kind of interesting in that, one of the things we say, when we say that we are, have First Amendment rights and that we can speak in a public way as an individual, and the School Ethics Commission has given us guidance previous to this, that if we do that, we have to put a disclaimer of saying, that we're not, even though we are a member of the board, we're not speaking on behalf of the board, we're not authorized to speak on behalf of the board. So this board member did put those disclaimers in his blog, but the School Ethics Commission said because there were so many references of this person being a board member, I guess in some of the posts would say, and while I was on the board or during the board meeting or, in board discussion, that he really wasn't convincing, I guess, that he wasn't speaking on behalf of board and that he was speaking as a private citizen.
Now, Ms. Peterson, I have a question on this one, something similar. What about, now you said here that the blog, I guess, was public. Now, what about I guess other social media platforms that are private but have large numbers of members, right? So I think, if you are on a posting on a 2,000 member, private group, does that, at what point, even though it's private, is it not private?
So there was a situation like that happened, and there was a board member who was a parent in a district, and the parents, so I guess the district had they were trying some new special program, and this board member's child was in this program, and so the parents in that program had their own Facebook group and were talking back and forth, and this board member made some disparaging comments about the staff member that was teaching it. Someone in that group took a picture of it and sent it to the staff member. And so the staff member and her husband showed up at the board meeting, obviously not pleased. So, you know, like I had said earlier, we are held accountable to these tenets of the code of ethics. So even regardless what we're doing, regardless, you know, if we're on social media, regardless whether it's public, not public, regardless what you're doing, you're held accountable to these tenets of the code of ethics.
Thanks. Board Member Manning, raise your hand up. Okay.
Okay. So here's the situation where a district was in a send-see relationship where their high school students, they were, the location of this district bordered another state. So their high school students were actually sent to a district across the state line to another state. So the commissioner decided to switch their send-see relationship, and that their high school students would instead go to a nearby district that was in-state. So this impacted the board president's child. So the board president fully participated in actions that resulted in the board as a whole actually making and passing a resolution, essentially that they were going to disregard the recommendation of the commissioner, that they were going to continue this relationship with the out-of-state district, and that the board would be responsible for paying the tuition for these parents that opted to continue to send their students. So needless to say, the School Ethics Commission considered that to be a blatant disregard for the commissioner's decision and felt that it was clearly a conflict of interest for the board president. And really, they said all of the board members, but the ethics charges were only filed against the board president. So there were numerous areas that were considered to be a violation, but by the time that this case was heard and decided, this board president was already off the board. So the School Ethics Commission said, so obviously we can't suspend them, we can't remove them from the board. The worst we can do would be to censure them, have that resolution read that the violation did take place. And then
on this one, any idea if that board president would have recused themselves from the vote? Would, I guess, A, ethics charges still been filed, and B, if so, would they have stopped?
So, it's hard to say. There were a lot more things that happened in this. So this is just really a high level summary. Like the board president actually went to the board meeting in the other district that was out of state and told them that she was going to get this taken care of and not to worry about it. And so there were all kinds of actions involved in this. And then in the last case here, there's a board member who went or attended an all expenses paid conference by someone a group who's a potential vendor of the district. And actually the board member is the one who introduced this vendor based on previous relationships or previous dealings that this board member had, and said that this vendor had a program that they thought would be, really beneficial to the district. Brought it to the district. The superintendent and the staff looked at it. When the opportunity for this conference came up, it was in Arizona. The superintendent said no, none of the staff is going, disparaged the board member from going. And the board member, basically said that they didn't report to the superintendent, that they were going to, and felt that attending this conference would be a benefit to them. So the School Ethics Commission came back and actually, and this is the situation where the School Ethics Commission decided that the penalty that they were going to recommend was removal. And the reason was that they wanted to, deter other school officials from accepting gifts. As the commissioner considered other such situations, felt that a 6-month suspension was the penalty that was actually ended up coming down then. So as they looked at it, they said, it was C that, took actions beyond our duty, our policy-making duties, and said that there was no reason for a board member to take an all expenses paid trip to a conference to learn about a product or program, E was taking independent action that could compromise the board. So in this case, those actions could have compromised the board's ability to contract with this vendor and also the public's opinion of the board's integrity. And then F was using the position, for any benefit or gain, in this case for this person's self, and said that they got a free out-of-state trip. So again,
Ms. Peterson, we have a question.
Sure.
Board Member Wakefield.
Hi, Ms. Peterson.
Hello.
While not connected to the accepting of gifts, in my role professionally as an administrator in another public school district in another state, I work with many vendors that are also partnered with SOMSD. So what, if any, ethical implications may be present as a result of working with similar vendors in my professional life?
So again, I can just speak in general, and that probably would be a good question for you to ask the board attorney. But in many cases, if you're not clear, and if it might be considered a conflict, typically you may just recuse yourself from any discussion on vote on any in situations where you would find yourself overlapping professionally with with the board and the districts. And if it's something that, there isn't guidance on, it, can also be, where you also encourage members to seek an advisory opinion explaining your specific situation to the School Ethics Commission to see what kind of advice that they would give you.
I guess it's on the same vein as Courtney, because I'm in a similar situation. I have done some consulting work and paid work for some vendors that now have a relationship with the district. So I am assuming that I should now just potentially they're being myself from voting on them.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to almost that very first slide that I talked about of, maintaining the public trust, and also anything that might leave a justifiable impression to the public that they're that their trust is being violated. So I sometimes have seen members recuse themselves if it's, kind of iffy of whether maybe they don't really need to or they're not sure, but kind of taking that more conservative approach of, not doing anything that would to leave that justifiable impression. But again, in these situations, I would suggest that you consult with, with your board attorney to discuss your particular specific situation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Charlene, can I interrupt? This is Anne-Marie. So
sure.
I think can you talk about recusing from the vote and recusing from the discussion, and whether that also is considered during committee meetings, and whether the person has to leave the room or can stay and listen and not comment, I guess, those types of logistics.
So typically when if you find yourself in a situation where you need to recuse yourself, and again, it may depend on what it is. We're going to get in here in a few minutes. I'm going to talk about conflicts, like when you can't take part in things whatsoever. In many cases, the School Ethics Commission has said that when you have a conflict, that you basically have no more rights than any other member of the public. So a lot of times you kind of use that as the standard to guide your level of participation. Okay. So while we had talked about the code of ethics, we also have conflicts of interest. And so conflicts of interest apply not only to you as a board member, but this also would include some school administrators. And here, is those situations when you would recuse yourself if there's a business interest. In that advisory opinion, we saw they use this, that this position might be an unwarranted privilege or advantage for the superintendent's sister-in-law. When I was on my board, one of the board members, his wife worked in the district and they took the district's health benefits. So every time we would vote to approve that check to pay for the health benefits, he would always recuse himself, on that check number. So, I heard a board attorney talk about this once and said, basically comes down to blood and money. And kind of if you find yourself with, either one of those, that, that typically might be, guidance of when to recuse yourself. And wanted to draw your attention to the...
I'm sorry, board member Wakefield has a question.
Sure.
So this makes sense. I guess I'm wondering, to what extent does this also apply to board members? So for instance, if I participated in a lawsuit and was currently in a settlement agreement with the district.
So that one I'm not even touching. So that one, I would definitely suggest that you talk to the board attorney about that one.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Board member, I'm sorry, Ms. Peterson, I just have a question. I think board member asked me, I'll get to you next. What's the definition of a business interest? Is it, some of the things that we just talked about earlier about having relationships with vendors? Is that the type of thing that are we talking about when we say business interest? Or like the opportunity to form a relationship like we have as a separate. Is that something we're referring to?
Yeah, these are just kind of in general. I can share with you the code, the code, and then there's also some stat, that really breaks it down and provides their exact definitions. So we'll share that with you so that you have that to refer to.
Okay, thank you. Board member Malaspina? Did you have your hand up?
I'm going to defer at the present moment.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Peterson.
No, I also just wanted to bring your attention to the gold box down on the bottom, and also let you know that the conflict would not only apply if you had the conflict, but also someone from your immediate family and wanted to make you aware of what the state's definition is of an immediate family member. So that would be your spouse or dependent child who is residing in your same household. So the conflict would be, like I said, if you or your immediate family.
I have just a question. What about a dependent adult? It's like a parent.
So that, I'm going to go there next. So here, the state has identified separate from an immediate family member as a relative. So these are, and again, we'll see how that conflict comes into play. So you can see that it's almost every relationship that you might have in terms of your family. I think the only thing we've seen pretty much that's missing from here is cousin, but pretty much everything else is on there. And we have seen advisory opinions in that letter B that they had used about the superintendent. I don't know if you noticed that in the advisory opinion, it didn't say a sister-in-law, it said other. So they leave themselves that window so that if someone is not specifically listed here, but it's felt that there might be a perception that they had some kind of an advantage, that they can use that term other.
So quick question, I'm sorry. If it goes back to sort of that teacher, like if your son or daughter is in the district, which many of us have children in the district, and we are discussing a teacher that they have, is it better to recuse ourselves from the discussion or recuse ourselves for votes related to that?
So it goes down to, if there's any kind of a benefit or any kind of a conflict. So, like say, the example you always give is like, let's say your child's in fourth grade, the fourth grade's going on a field trip and you're asked to approve this field trip. If your child, you can vote on that because your child's not getting any greater benefit than anyone else in the fourth grade. So you will have to kind of use that standard of, there's no specific benefit to your child of you having, whatever this situation is that you're in. So will have to kind of use, I guess, consider the situation, and let that be your guide.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess another similar to what Board Member Malaspina brought up. So in a situation where you are you're a board member and also a parent in the district, and for whatever reason, one of your children didn't have a very good year with that teacher, but that teacher is recommended for renewal by the superintendent. Voting against it seems to be arbitrary and capricious. It's just because you don't like that person, but you still need to follow the recommendations of the superintendent. Is that fair?
That's fair. I mean, that's up to each person to decide. But like I said, as a board member, you are asked to cast an informed vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we had looked at that broad definition relative. So now we see where the term relative is coming into play, and saying that as we look at hiring, that as a district, that you cannot hire the relative of a board member or of the superintendent. So, there may be situations like in this advisory opinion where the relative already worked in the district before the superintendent was hired, or if your relative already works in the district, before the board member gets on the board, that's fine. It's just that you can't hire them if, you are on the board. So if you do find yourself in a situation where the relative is already working in the district, from an administrative standpoint, you can't exercise direct authority over your relative. From the board member's perspective, if we recognize that we have that one employee, the superintendent, this would be a situation where we would not be able to be involved in the evaluation of the superintendent. So when the board members were in executive session and they were discussing, the performance evaluation of the superintendent, you would not be able to take part in that. You would not be able to sit with the board when they review the evaluation with the superintendent. And, should you ever find yourself, for boards that find themselves in a situation where they have to hire a superintendent, and if someone has a relative that works in the district, that person can't be involved in the process. And it was interesting in the advisory opinion in this one, it was one of the first times that the School Ethics Commission really went into detail and said, you can't even be part of the discussion of hiring the consultant, have anything to do with the advertising, basically said, that you just can't take part in any part of the process.
Charlene, I have a question. This is Johanna.
Sure.
Okay, board member Wright, and then board member Zubietta, you'll be next.
Okay, I'm sorry. You want somebody else to go first?
No, Ms. Wright, please go. I'm just letting board member Zubietta know she will be next.
Okay, if a board member's child has an IEP agreement with the district, does that mean that the board member cannot hear any issues regarding IEPs, or if the issue impacts the board member's child only?
So, as a board member, you don't ever lose you're a parent. You don't lose your right as the parents. So it will be, you'll have to look at it from a particular situation, from each situation. You wear two hats now, so we always say that you have to be mindful of that, but you also have to, recognize that you have responsibilities as a parent and that that's not taken away once you are a board member, but then also have to recognize that you are held accountable to the code of ethics all the time, even when you're dealing with situations with your child. So you do have to figure out what that balance is.
Board member Zubietta?
Hi, Charlene. I just want to clarify. I think I understood from the example about the superintendent's sister-in-law, but I just want to clarify. It means that if it's not just that if it was my sister-in-law, I would have to recuse myself from the conversations, and the vote. It would mean that the board in general cannot hire this person. That the superintendent cannot hire that person. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a question. Since we have, I guess, 3 educators from private, public, in state, out of state, if we were to hire someone from one of their districts, would they need to recuse? Or a school?
That one's a good, and that would be a question I would ask the board attorney. I mean, I don't know that there's any specific advisory opinion that's been written about that to know the answer to that.
Thank you.
I mean, we are going to look at the next slide here that will talk about what their restrictions are when it comes to collective bargaining, but I can honestly say that I wouldn't feel comfortable, I guess, you know, extrapolating it to apply to this as well. So, these are all really good questions, though. Yeah.
Ms. Board Member Malaspina?
Hi, yes, that question, very interesting. Thank you for bringing it up, you know, Board Member Joshua. But I would say past practice would say that that is not the case, because then Board Member Wright would have basically had to have accused herself from every hiring practice that has occurred in this district. And especially any related to going, you know, moving a person up into another position because she was an ex-boarder.
No, my question is actually the other way. Board Member Wright worked in this district, so I think I'm asking if you work in another district, or, you know, in Board Member Manny's case, owns a school and we were to hire a teacher from that school, would Board Member Manny need to recuse herself? That's the question. It sounds like,
it
sounds like Ms. Peterson is saying that she doesn't have an answer.
Okay.
Which is fine. I just wanted to ask the question.
No,
confused by that. Thank you.
It's one of those situations, you know, typically, you know, it's not me who's making the decision. Typically, I can respond to your questions based on advisory opinions that I've read that the School Ethics Commission has made public, so that I can share that opinion with you, because you know, the School Ethics Commission is the only one who technically can decide these things, you know, so we are giving you what we know as your board attorney is, you know, we are considering the advice that the School Ethics Commission has provided. And I can honestly say that I have never seen, or, you know, have not seen an advisory opinion for this, you know, specific situation that you just asked of me. So
I have another question.
Sure.
If a board member is a member or has been a member of a controversial community group, and that community group makes a request of the board, should that member recuse herself from all matters involving that group?
So again, it comes back to, you know, if there's the conflict would be, you know, as you look at those different situations of what poses a conflict, you know, is there any benefit to you? Is there any privilege that you can get from this? Is there, you know, are any of those, as you go through each one of those items, is there anything that you can check off yes to? Then you would, you know, recuse yourself. And then sometimes, like I said, sometimes you would hold yourself to that higher standard of, you know, would it leave a justifiable impression in the public's mind that there's any kind of a conflict here? And if that's the case, you know, then you know, might decide to recuse yourself. So.
Okay.
So here then is, you know, it sounds like you said that you do have members that might be in this situation of, you know, either with respect to collective bargaining, either working in another district. So, you know, just to clarify, you know, what your participation can be when your board is bargaining with either a same or a similar statewide union. So if you, again, if someone works in the district, and that relationship would be kind of that, well, really it's anyone. If anyone, any relatives work in the district, then you are out from all aspects of negotiations. You can't take part in the discussion. You can't take part in the vote. You are just completely out of the process. If we go to the second line, and if you or your immediate family member, your spouse or dependent child that you know, resides in your household, if they work in another district, if you or your spouse or dependent child work in another district in a same or similar statewide union, then the School Ethics Commission has said you have to stay out of it while they're bargaining, so that you can't do anything to, impact any of the outcomes. But once they're done, once a memorandum of agreement has been drawn up, once the salary guides are done, once they're completely done with the process, that you are able to vote. And they say absent other conflicts, and we'll look at that in just a minute. And then for those of us who, there's a lot of people who have a relative, that big broad definition, who are a teacher somewhere or, in the union somewhere, as long as it's not an immediate family member, but that bigger broad definition of a relative that works somewhere else, then you are able to fully participate in both discussion and the vote, absent any other conflicts. So.
Yes, question. So, I guess in board member Winkfield's case, she works, she's a member, I believe she's a member of a statewide union in another state. No, not a member of a union? Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Board members Agneta. You're muted.
Sorry, I want to understand, this is not just in New Jersey. Like if you work in Pennsylvania or Connecticut or New York, you would still be prohibited as per this chart.
So again, you guys are really like stretching the, so kind of what the standard is, if there is any, if there's any linkage, so again, that would be a question that I would ask for the board attorney, whether there can be any perceived linkage between, another state and what happens in your statewide union. Because, most of the time I see the language of statewide. So, I know that some associations are, nationwide, some of the groups that are represented. So that's a question that I would definitely ask. And I can honestly say that I can't really answer that based on what I know about it. So.
Okay, I have one more. What about, this chart talks about a statewide public teachers union. So if someone's a member of an administrative union, can they vote on a teacher's contract? And then if someone's a member of the teachers union, can they then vote on the administrator's contract?
So that one, there has been an advisory opinion on that one. And it might even help, I have this advisory opinion listed here that you see A2417. So I can send you that one as well, so that you have all the thinking behind this. But basically it comes down to linkage. So if there's any way that can be proved that if I'm in a supervisors association and somehow, because the teachers are getting, say, a certain raise, if that might impact what I'm able to negotiate for as an administrator, there's just kind of that concept of linkage. And if there's anything that can be considered linkage, then I might be conflicted. And here's some of the other areas too that, they said that, and here's what I just talked about here, employment was linked. If your family member, like I said, it's in the bigger, broader definition of your relative, they said if your relative has heightened union involvement, like if they're their building rep in the school district that they work for, that they might consider that to be a conflict. And then if we look at an advisory opinion down below for you as a board member, sometimes board members are endorsed by their local union, and said that if you received any kind of a financial contribution, that you may sometimes seen board members have had to sit out from negotiations for a year after they're reelected. After they're elected because of what might be considered a conflict. Moving on, also look at volunteerism. You know, for most of us as a board member, we are usually actively involved in our community, oftentimes actively involved in the schools before we got on the board, only to find that, you know, that the School Ethics Commission has, you know, looked at some situations and, you know, said that if we are to maintain our role as a board member and kind of maintain that 30,000-foot view of the district and not be involved in the day-to-day operation of the district, that there may be times when, you know, it may impact what we do as a volunteer. You know, the kind of one of the first cases that started this is there was a board member whose wife worked in the district and his wife ran the school play. So he used to help his wife with the play. So he was for a period of time in the school every day, had active and close contact with students. They had a budget. They were supervising staff. And the ruling came back that they thought that this would be beyond his role as a board member and would impact his ability to be an effective board member. So that's kind of the guidance then that the School Ethics Commission has kind of given us is, you know, are you so actively enmeshed in the school district that people might confuse you with being, you know, a staff member or being in there all the time? Are you providing direction to staff? Are you have a lot of day-to-day or exposure to students? Do you have money with spending the district's money? And kind of want to separate the fact that you may be involved in things like I had someone who called me today who is the president of the district's the education foundation for the community, but it's its own separate 501c3. It has its own budget. It's its own separate organization. So that would be fine. I said, you just would have to recuse yourself perhaps, if the Ed Foundation was making a donation and the board was accepting it or something, so you have to look at that fine line. But so basically, the School Ethics Commissions, has said that we need to maintain our role as a board member. So there was a board member who, when she was getting on her board, was the PTA president. She was a homeroom mom. So her board was trying to discourage her, or, I should say, encouraging her to back away from some of those responsibilities. So she requested an advisory opinion, and the School Ethics Commission came back and basically said, you can perform those roles. You can be the PTA president. You can be the homeroom mom, as long as you still are able to do these, maintain these other kind of, I don't want to call them restrictions, but, as long as you are not, if you can be PTA president, but not be enmeshed in the building, if you, don't have that active day-to-day presence. So you still have to be in compliance with these other directives. And if you can do that, that you can still, fulfill those roles, recognizing that, you still have these other responsibilities as a board member.
So Charlene, board member Malaspina, hi.
Hello.
I'm going to ask another question. If a, say, board member was involved as like a volunteer lunch aide or something like that, where they were in the school somewhat often,
So again, it would be, the School Ethics Commission has said, that we recognize you're going to volunteer. We recognize that, you are a parent. So just kind of, be cautious. If maybe instead of going in there every day, maybe you're just in there, less often than that. So you kind of have to recognize that you're wearing your board hat now, and we always say that board members that you will find that, we say you kind of have that B on your forehead, and that, people and staff and, will know you're a board member, and you may find yourself, that you have to respond differently to conversations and situations now that you are a board member. So I guess just be mindful of these advisory opinions and try and, respect your role as a board member and respect the guidance that you've received from the School Ethics Commission. And again, these are all the advisory opinions that, you're welcome to actually read the opinions and see the language and see the situations that might help provide a clearer understanding of the guidance that's been provided.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Board Member Bergen?
Yes, thank you. I just had one or two questions, actually. Are you able to chaperone field trips? The answers all look good, except taking orders from staff. You'd need to
yes,
do.
that was even one of the examples that the School Ethics Commission said as something that they would consider to be acceptable, and said, things such as chaperoning a school trip, coming in and reading on Dr. Seuss Day. They gave kind of different kind of one-time like situations.
Okay. Thank you. And then I guess another question is, right now we have different groups distributing on school grounds like winter jackets this week or food on a regular basis. Is that something that we could volunteer to do as board members?
So again, yes. I mean, we don't want to discourage volunteerism. You just have to do it mindfully within these, so rather than coming in there every day, you may find yourself doing something less than because of this guidance.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And then just really, that was kind of it, just kind of summing up, that we suggest that if you do have conflicts, of making sure that the board understands them kind of upfront who does have conflicts. Again, I've mentioned consulting with your board attorney on ethics issues. And, New Jersey school boards can help you stay abreast of what's going on, that we put out weekly, and you'll receive it in your email, our school board notes that will provide updates on new ethics cases coming out, new rulings, because, the state pretty much says that, not knowing about it is not exactly sometimes a good excuse for violating and, anything in the ethics, recognizing that you do have avenues for receiving information. And then just kind of wanted to conclude with just being mindful of that public trust and, really kind of taking this role seriously. And, I really do feel that it is an honor to serve on the board, to serve your community, to, to help advance student achievement. So just to kind of make sure that you are mindful of that responsibility.
Charlene, last year when you came here doing the ethics thing, you introduced a fourth ethics rule that was put into effect. And when I'm going to the New Jersey School Boards Association meetings and learning things, I'm really concerned about what we're doing here because we've had so many issues and we've been basically admonished by the commission in terms of the commission being disheartened by our board's failure to address an incident that was here that was used as one of the things not to do as a board member, if you recall last year. And especially since the board president had received information that could help us. Now, as a group, you talked about working as a team. And we have to do a better job of that. But we had the admonishment of the commission, and even if the board was, even in consulting our council and our board president, and with not good judgment, they said that whatever the issue was, that ended up being something that no one should do, was not a board matter. And I just want to be clear that when we're doing things, that we're very, very clear on what we're doing, because I'm going to tell you, I'm really tired of going down to the School Boards Association. And every time we go down, I go into a conference and it's always South Orange Maplewood School District and what not to do. So having you here with us tonight is really, really important. And I think everyone has asked some really, really important questions.
I agree. You've challenged me tonight, that's for sure. Yeah.
And so you also talked about choosing a superintendent. I wanted to ask you a little something about that, because a major part of that job is the site visit. Because we have differing opinions stating about it. Can you tell me what your opinion is when you're looking for a superintendent and you're going down for a site visit? What are the elements of a site visit when it's done should we hear about? Is it maintenance contracts, a head of maintenance here, a union, department chairman? Is it documented in a course, or are there regulations that says how things should be done? Are these the kind of reports and things that we should have? And if we do not receive reports from our site visits, what can you tell us to make things better for us in the future?
So, I mean, from that situation, I mean, it really is an individual thing. I mean, this is all, you know, I know boards that don't even do site visits, so it's not a required part of the process. It's part of the vetting process. So as a group, you want to make sure that, you know, that once you have selected a finalist, that this is just a way for you to continue to vet that this person is the one that best meets your expectations, is the one that is best fulfilling the things that you're looking for. So what your board is looking for may be different than what another board is looking for. So you are just using this as a vetting process to further validate whether this person is the right fit for your district or not.
Okay, the last question is about the Board of School estimate. I also have a question about the health department in terms of what's going on today. We're in a shared school district. And so for the most part, we're hearing only from one town's health department when it comes to dealing with the COVID situation. Can you tell me what's going on statewide when you have shared school districts with both towns being involved with the health department or whatever's going on? I'm going to talk to you in 1 second about the Board of School estimate. I have a question.
So right now you're getting out of my area of expertise. I have, so that would be something that would have to be, you know, a local conversation.
A local conversation.
I can only talk, or, you know, I'm here to address governance issues, and that's, you know, not specific things to one particular community. I wish I could help you more than that, but it's beyond what it's beyond, you know, my abilities, I guess, or my knowledge of about the situation. So,
Board Member Wright, can I just ask you to hold your next question? I just want to make sure no one else has anything before we get back to you. I don't see any hands. Okay, Ms. Board Member Wright.
Okay, I was trying to find my camera. I had it off for the thing because I don't want to get distracted looking at myself. But
we want to see your face.
It's been such a long time since I looked in the mirror or a camera. In terms, have you dealt with Board of School Estimate District, Charlene?
I have not. You are the only district. I have Essex County and Morris County, so you are a rare. It's. You know, I guess you're rare being, you know, you guys are, well, you are a very unique situation, just the way your board works. So in terms of that relationship.
Okay, then I'll hold my question. I'll send it to the State Department. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see you're back with us again, right?
your video camera.
Yeah, Board Member Wright, I think there's less than 10 in the state that fall with that have a Board of School estimate. So we are indeed very rare. If there are no other questions for Ms. Peterson, I will say goodnight and thank you on behalf of the board. This was very informative. I think, as you said, we did all ask some good questions and we got some good answers. So thank you.
Thank you. It is my pleasure. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too. Good night.
Now, Ms. Butler, I know we're supposed to adjourn to executive session and then come back for new business. Is there a way we can flip that so that we notice we do any new business now, notice the January general meeting, and then adjourn to exec so we don't have to come back?
You can. It's not the best way to do it, but you do have the ability to do it. I would have the board members vote on changing tonight's agenda and then do
Would that
it.
be a formal vote, or can we do a?
Do it as a formal vote.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion to change the order of tonight's agenda so that we do new business and then notice our next meetings before we adjourn to executive session. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Malaspina. Mr. Roth, can you please call the roll?
If I can just add, I did not see on the agenda, I believe, a second public speaks. Was there intention to have a second public speak?
Yes, there is. Which again, we would do before adjourning to executive session.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Mr. President, may I assist, please?
Sure.
Just to make sure that the public record reflects everything correctly. The motion, as I understand it, is for us to shift our agenda to move our executive session to end our meeting and to not return to the public. And before executive session, we would review any possible public speaks and also close out new business. Is that correct?
That is in fact correct.
All right, thank you.
All right, Ms. Butler, can we proceed with the vote now?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Roth, can you please call the roll?
Okay, this is the roll call to change the order of the agenda as stated by Dr. Taylor. Reverse alphabetical order. I just keep fluctuating. Board Member Kamal Zubieta.
Yes.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
Yes.
Okay. Board Member Courtney Wingfield.
Yes.
Board Member Erin Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Alyssa Malaspina.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Manning.
Yes.
Board Member Thayer Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes.
Board Member Susan Bergen.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Okay, so we will now do our second public speaks. Dr. Taylor, Mr. Bonds, do we have any second public speaks?
I do not see any in the WebEx chat, and I don't see any in my email. Mr. Bond, do you have anything?
That's confirmed. There are no additional public speaks comments.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our second public speaks. I'll now open the floor for new business. Does any board member have any new business? Board Member Malaspina.
Hi, yes. I'd like to propose that our next board meeting be either in public or in a hybrid type of situation, because I feel like if we are asking our teachers to come back, that we should be coming back ourselves into session.
Board Member Malaspina, thank you. I do agree. There are a couple of logistic things that we need to work out. So when I notice the public meeting for January, I will notice it as with the WebEx, with the idea of meeting in person, if possible.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Board Member Wright, you're muted, or was that comment intended for us?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm letting you and Miss Malaspina know I will be coming through this forum.
And we will have to, and to be, not to make light of it, but that is one of the issues that we would need to deal with to make sure that we can operate safely, and we don't have the ability to compel members to join in person. Not that we would want to do so to begin with, but ensuring that we can operate an efficient meeting with not everyone in the room is one of the things that we need to consider before committing to that. So that's why we will notice with the option versus the demand. So thank you, Board Member Wright.
That was what I was trying to get at by saying a hybrid approach, because I understand that Ms. Wright and others might not. want to or have the ability to.
Right. I'm compromised.
Any other new business? Board Member Cuddle.
If I may, since this is a public meeting, I just wanted to remind the community that there is the Soma Shares that's going to be happening, I believe, on Friday. Other board members, if I have the date wrong, and for the coat drive and books and food. And I believe the YMCA is also scheduling another food donation for families in the community as well.
Thank you, Board Member Cuddle. Any other new business? Board Member Siders.
Hello. Speaking of meetings, I would like the board to consider that we continue to have committee meetings virtually. I find them to be more effective than having them in person. And, you know, we have board members with young children, and it may be easier for those folks if we're conducting from home.
Thank you, Board Member Siders. I agree. I'm not sure if we need to do a motion or a vote or anything formal to do that. Board Member Zubieta?
Is your suggestion ongoing post-pandemic or just during this period?
I'm suggesting post-pandemic, if possible.
Right. I mean, committee meetings are not public, so as long as we don't go to a committee of the whole, I don't see why that would be an issue. But we can discuss, and if we need to either amend policy or something to make that viable, we should endeavor to do so.
No,
Any other new business? Board Member Wright.
I'm sorry, committee meetings are public. We just don't do it in public, but they are public.
Well, there's not a quorum of the board, right? So, okay, it is, again, and that we don't, as long as we don't have a committee of the whole where they would be a board, a quorum of the board, then we don't have to notice it effectively. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Board Member Zubieta.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused. I always thought that it was just board members, not in a quorum, that were in a committee meeting, and possibly the superintendent or Dr. Alegria. Are people from the general public allowed to come to a committee meeting?
Yes.
I'm going to defer to.
Yes, our board policy clearly states that if the chairperson makes it so that a committee meeting is public. Or quorum
can be public.
Of the members.
So why is it that we don't notice them? Like, why? How would the public know that they were invited?
Before I defer to board member, before I defer to Ms. Butler, I believe she just said can be public, which I would interpret differently than must be public. Is that correct, Ms. Butler?
Right, and certainly things, you would not have personnel as a public meeting. There are certain things that you would not do as public. Some boards do utilize more public committee meetings, and doing this for over 30 years, most boards do not. But there are certain things that can be done in public. As public meetings, they are not with a quorum of the board, but it is something at which members of the public may attend. They don't participate, but they can attend them. But
Thank you.
it's more the exception than the rule.
Ms. Butler, just to clarify with what you just said, if that's okay, President Joshua, in regards to that, so it would be just that the public could attend an observation, but not attend because it's not a dialogue or open forum or have a public speak component.
Correct.
Thank you, Ms. Butler.
Yeah, I know. Just to clarify, I'm referring to board policy 1 0155 for those board members who were questioning.
What was that number, Ms. Malaspina? What was that number? Zero?
It's 0115, and it states in the bottom of it, it says, assuming no quorum is present, committee meetings shall not be open to the public except that a majority of the committee or the chairperson may open the meeting to the public or invite persons whose knowledge or expertise may be useful to the committee. That is our board policy.
That's the way I remember it.
So again, it's can be and may, not must or will.
Correct.
Thank you.
I think it's at the discretion of the chairperson and the committee. The
Yes.
chairperson makes that call.
That's how it reads, Miss Wright, to the best of my understanding.
I know when I was chair of the communications committee, when we had that, and I was doing the first of the known town halls, we had invited some people in to give us information about how we could do it better. As a matter of fact, Ms. Malaspina, you were one of those people, along with Ms. Butler, who's the vice principal at Columbia, to tell us how we could do communication better. And we ended up doing these town halls, which were pretty. Invited. Our meetings are announced and stuff. For our person to get out. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Wright. Any other new business? Okay, seeing none, I will close discussion. I believe now, Ms. Butler, I should notice the January general meeting, and then we move to executive session.
Sorry, yes.
Okay, the Board of Education will meet in closed session on Monday, January 25th at 6:30 p.m. via either the online conference platform, in person, or a combination of the two to discuss personnel, legal issues, negotiations, and other matters to be announced at a later date. Immediately following the closed session, the Board of Education will meet in public session at 7:30 p.m. using the online video conference platform or in person or a combination of the two. The community can view the meeting by taking following steps, which will be listed on our agenda, and action will be taken. Okay, so now I believe I can make a motion to adjourn to executive session. All right, can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Board Member, Mr. Roth, that was unanimous. Thank you to the public, and we will now adjourn to executive session for this evening.
Keith, do we need to do anything special because we are coming in with, should we be using a different email address to get in to executive session or?
For this one, you can use the your personal accounts for this session. So for the next executive session, you use your district account that you authenticated.
Okay, thank you, because I know I had trouble getting in before. So, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.